No whammies. Okay. Test this one out. This is going to be a little longer, I think. But we just got to start and see what happens. This is officially the first entry in my Pozo Ponderings portion of this vlog, this blog situation I have going on here. And I chose to start us off with a fun topic about pain. And what do we owe our pain? A very light subject, I know, to start off with, but it is a subject nonetheless that has been on my mind for a while. And again, I do have some notes to scaffold, rightfully so, such an abstract and oftentimes emotional discussion surrounding pain. And I think maybe the best place to start before we get into the abstract parts of pain, of this emotion, of the kind of headier, higher thinking portion of it is it's probably best to share my experience and where I am coming from. Speaking to the kind of vulnerability and sincerity I want to bring to this conversation with myself and with the anonymous people out there who might stumble upon this. And so, yeah, I guess coming from my experience, or there's a portion of my experience when it comes to pain, or my relation to pain, and maybe how I've learned to associate with it, has to do with the passing of my father, which, pretty big source of pain for many people, right? The passing of a loved one. And I guess I'll just kind of speak about him a little bit and my experience with this, and we'll kind of see where the conversation goes from there, and what else comes up. We're both maybe we're both in for a surprise here. But yes, my father passed away about the summer of 2022, so about 2 years ago. 3 years ago, actually. It's crazy how time kind of flies like that. He passed away during my junior year of college, right after finals. I think as death does, or you remember some moments very clearly, and you remember some other moments not very well, like they're kind of a blur. But he passed away within 2 weeks of his diagnosis. He was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. This was a guy who, before this episode, probably didn't go to the doctor for over 10 years for various reasons. Some of it's the cost, but also it was just him not wanting to go, maybe not wanting to know things, not wanting to deal with it. He was always kind of an ox. He never got sick. He was a construction worker, and one of the strongest men I knew in my life, especially. He was only 64 years old, pretty young, I would say. And as cliche, as I kind of tell myself, if it wasn't so sad, it'd be incredibly funny or cliche how he passed. And that he passed 3 months before he was going to retire. 3 months before he was going to retire, sell the house, move to the coast, get his boat, get fishing, hunting, kind of do everything that he wasn't able to do, and that he was kind of pushing off until later. And so again, he was incredibly strong, both physically and mentally, incredibly loving. I find so much of him in myself, in the attention I put into the world, and the love I kind of assigned to just about everything, it seems. He loved me incredibly much, as I came to find out, even more so after his passing. And how if he wasn't bragging about his fantasy football teams, there's fantasy teams, he was bragging about me. And how proud he was of me for doing all the things he wasn't able to do, and going to college, being the first person in my family to go to college. And I could speak at length about the kind of guy my dad was. and what he meant to me, and what he meant to all the people that he came in contact with, and all the stories and everything. That could be a 3+ hour vlog with a lot of tears and a lot of silences as I try not to cry. But I'll try and save that for maybe another one. Try to keep this under an hour if I can manage it. But safe to say that was a very painful experience for me. I remember getting the call during my finals. I had finally gotten COVID. I was quarantined in my bedroom. I think my mom also got incredibly sick, and there was a period of time where I think both of us thought she was going to pass away before he did. She had pneumonia and like a lung abscess and other health issues. And she was in the ICU. So she went to the ICU one day on a Monday. My dad went to the ICU on the following Tuesday with yellow skin and all that kind of thing. I think by that Thursday of the week this was all happening is when I got the call from his doctor's assistant, kind of give me the rundown of all the scans they done on him and the growths they found in his liver, and the metastasized nature of this, and it looked very serious. And your dad has cancer. It doesn't look very good, and you should maybe come up here sooner rather than later, kind of conversation. And so I was bawling on the floor of my college apartment with COVID during finals week. And I got all A's during my finals as well, which is pretty incredible, I will say. And like I mentioned, he was gone 2 weeks later. And so it was a very quick 2 weeks of doctor's appointments, of all the things that go unsaid. Just trying to be there for my dad, trying to get him on health insurance, get him his doctor's appointment, seeing the strongest person, one of the strongest people waste away in a little over 2 weeks. Day by day, hour by hour, is I don't think I'd wish that on anyone. And I think there was this one doctor's appointment, like one of his main oncologists, I believe, where I was in the room with him, and the doctor basically told him, "We've done all the tests we can do. We've run the numbers, and we've talked to the doctors, and we've kind of come to the point that there's really nothing we can do." As far as operations or chemo is just so extensive, other than give you the best support you can as far as palliative pain management, you're kind of seeing how things go. Sometimes the body makes it, and sometimes it doesn't. Kind of conversation. And I was in the room, and as that kind of news dawned on us, and I remember my dad saying when this doctor was talking about hospice care, and that just kind of sounds like when the doctor was offering hospice care, my dad was talking about how it just kind of sounds like giving up. And he wasn't a guy to give up. But I think there's something to be said about how the body knows quicker than the mind does, and that maybe if my dad didn't give up mentally the fight against this cancer, that I don't know how long he knew something was wrong. He was never the kind of guy to complain or to maybe advocate for himself as maybe one should. Who knows how long this was going on before? Probably had to have been a while before I got to this point. But back to my point, I think once the body kind of knows that the game is over, and that you've given up the ghost, right? The speed at which he declined, I guess is what I'm trying to say, was very quick and day to day, where he was, one day the first couple of days he was able to walk down the stairs and get around and that kind of thing, and by 1 week later he was needing help to go to the bathroom and getting help getting off the couch, spending his whole day in his couch, kind of thing. And then by the last few days he was basically silent. And then when the brain thinks about all what could have been said and what should have been said, and I think I was lucky enough where before he passed, the hospice nurses told me that even if he can't respond, then he should still be able to hear what you're trying to say to him. And so I tried my best as a 21-year-old dealing with the imminent passing of his father, his whole life being turned upside down, the potential passing of his mother as well, to try and tell him that everything would be okay. to not worry, that you've given me everything I need you to give me, and all those thoughts. So that was a very painful experience, and I think you know sometimes one has to have a very personal experience, a really hands-on experience with these kind of things, whether it be pain or love or grief or whatever it might be, to fully get a sense of what it means to manage them. I think I'm definitely at fault, not at fault, but I'm also one to try and learn the lessons, like learn lessons before I have to learn the lessons. Trying to read the articles and prepare myself, and you're trying to avoid the experiences that others have to go through by learning enough beforehand, I guess. But I think I've come to learn in my few years that really at some point you just have to have the experience to understand what it means to go through it. And I think I very rightly so, very easily so, understandably so, I could have taken this passing in a very bitter and angry and sad kind of way. I think I think there'd be no fault if I did do that. And I think there was a time where I was really maybe angry. I don't know if I was angry. I think a little bit of just how things turned out. And just I think I don't think there's a week that goes by where I don't think about how great it would be if he was here. I mean, of course he's here in like the kind of abstract, amorphous, spiritual sense, but he's not here. Um, he's not here to share in my experiences. But I think I've chosen, and one has to make the choice. I have chosen to take this experience as positively as one can. And again, I think I'm kind of getting to maybe the abstract more pieces of this of my experience with pain, and how I've chosen to embrace it. I'm not going to sound too different from any psychology article online, but I think I've chosen to interpret this experience and to take it as one of growth, and as one of graciousness and of gratitude. And I think it was Andrew Garfield, I believe, or I'm sure someone else besides him. He's not the only one, but someone who mentioned that grief is all the love that has nowhere to go, all the pain that has nowhere to go, and that my dad wasn't taken away from me. Nothing. I don't think nothing was taken away. I shouldn't. I choose not to think of it as something being taken away from me, as something I was so lucky to be given. How lucky am I to have a relationship, or as such that I would feel so much pain having this person pass away. I think that is a true testament to the impact that this person had in my life, or these people have in our lives, and where many people never have this kind of relationship with their father, right? I think a lot of people have negative relationships, and that's not to say, right, everything was perfect. I think my dad showed his love through his work and his actions, more so through words. I think I feel a lot closer to my dad, oddly enough, after his passing than maybe when he was alive, which is a whole other thing to unpack. Maybe later, but especially the last few years as I got older, as we were just kind of, getting to know each other's friends. It was, I have so many fond memories. And it's all the small memories, which is weird. Which, like, of course, there's big memories of my graduation from high school and birthdays and that kind of thing. But also, I think a lot of it's like all the little day-to-day things where I remember watching CBS, TV shows with him from 9 to 11 o'clock every night, and I remember our movie nights where we go to Redbox and get some DVDs, go to Papa Murphy's, get a pizza, throw it in, the weekly kind of routine. Those are things that kind of I remember most. And it's kind of funny how that works with how much death and grief kind of adds value to all these little small moments that maybe you maybe took for granted um, in the past. But I think that's that value. I think is one of the big things I want to kind of speak out into the universe is that everything exists on a spectrum, right? And that I strongly believe that in order to experience the highest of the highs, you also need to experience the lowest of the lows in some sense, because it is only in death that life has its value. And it is only in pain that we know how to live contentedly and to love. It is only through loss that we know how to gain. Everything, you can't have one without the other, right? It's the cliche yin and yang way of things, right? White and black, absence and loss or lack of, and that you have to accept the whole thing, the whole kit and caboodle. And then again, knowing that our time is finite here makes it all the more important to live every day with intention, with presence, with being. I mean, and to love and to enjoy as hardly as you can these moments that you're given, because again, you don't know when your time is up, when these people around you's time is up, and I think there is a lot of power as well into surrendering to this. I think a lot of society in general, Western society, or at least the one I've grown up in, naturally, understandably so, where there's this push away from pain and from death and from grief because it's a bad thing, right? It's a horrible thing. It is something that you cannot explain in words. The pain of losing someone, especially abruptly, especially if they mean so much to you. So, understandably so, right? We don't want to exist in that space. We try to move through it as fast as possible, or to push it away, or to push those feelings away, or to go through the process as fast as possible, so we can get to the other side and get back to living, get back to normal, whatever normal is. But again, as I've realized in my experiences, is that this is the normal, right? The pain is a part of the process, and the more you try to find a shortcut or to get around or to hide from whatever it is you're trying to hide from, pain in this case, or other bad experiences in others, through other people, through substances, alcohol, through your work, through intellectualizing or whatnot. I think at some point, what I've learned is that the quickest way out is through, and that if you truly surrender yourself to whatever it is you're feeling, and if you truly try to listen to whatever it is that's trying to tell you that pain, that loss, and you sit with it, and you look it in the eye, and you look into the abyss, and you let the abyss look back into you, and if you truly honor that experience, I think that it can be an incredibly powerful and empowering experience. And we cannot choose the experiences that we are given, the experiences that happen to us, or the cards that we are dealt, but we can choose how we are to deal with the cards we are given, and how we choose to deal with the experiences we are given. Of course, easier said than done. Easier said on the other side of things than when you're in the thick of it. And I've had bad experiences, but I certainly could have had worse experiences. So this is all coming from a very personal perspective, but I do think there's a lot of power in that pain, and you have to let the tears come. Again, we push the feelings away. I think in the U.S., where I'm from, we are very thinking and logical primacy kind of society where it's thinking and it's reasoning and the emotions are messy and uncontrollable and maybe not masculine in my case, and therefore you should minimize that. But I think feelings are a very powerful tool that can be used. That can be, if you listen to them rightly. Again, you try to listen to what they're trying to say. And oftentimes, the body knows before the mind does what's going on. Um, and again, trying to push down these thoughts only stores them somewhere else. I think there's articles that have been, books that have been written, right? The body keeps a score on how our emotions are held within us and how they can make themselves known through stress, and through pain, and through other physical outlets and mental outlets as well. And so again, you have to let the tears come. You have to. There's a place. Yeah, you have to feel what the body needs to feel, and the only way out is through. However long, however rocky that experience is. I think that's there's a certain beauty to it. Again, and that it is this pain, it is this loss, it is this grief that gives life its beauty, that gives life its meaning. And that I know now that my dad is gone, that I have worked incredibly hard to add value to every waking moment, to try and live a life more in tune with my values, to appreciate the little moments, the little things that matter more oftentimes than the big things, right? The wind through the trees, the little flowers that are blooming throughout the seasons, the birds that chirp, a good cup of tea in the morning, a good chat with a friend, right? These are all things that matter the most. And I think everything looks a little greener now than maybe they were before. And this is a thought that I've kind of struggled with a little bit, kind of coming to terms with and what it means. But I think oftentimes I feel that in some sense my dad had to pass away in order so I could truly live. And I don't know what that quite means. It's kind of a weird thing to sit with. But I definitely I am better in a sense, or his having passed, than I was before. Which, of course, give yourself grace, right? We're all doing this thing for the first time, and we can only, handle things the best way we can handle them. But I do believe I've chosen to take his passing and to take the other hard things that have come up in my life afterwards, as opportunities for growth, as signs to redouble my intention, and to redouble the care I have for myself, the love I have for myself, and what I want out of this. Because I'm generally healthy, I would say. I got some quibbling things that I can't do much about, and then through that, I just kind of live to accept them. But I try to eat healthy. I try to read. I try to do what someone has to do to keep a longevity to this thing, to keep the wheels from falling off. But I've really tried to accept the whole thing. Again, we live in a society. We do. We live in a society, but we live in a society, again, this Western, that really values pleasure versus pain. That the consumption, the positive, the dopamine, the quick kind of bursts, and not the more in-depth nuance of pain and living and what it means to be a human in this world. And so one of the final notes I have put down for this is that I think if pain is worth the cost of living, or if pain is the cost of living, right? If pain is the cost of living, then it is worth the cost. Then living is worth it. If my dad had to pass away for me to feel how I feel now, to do things I would not be here where I am in Paraguay. I could have, but been without my dad's passing. But after my dad's passing, I was like, I need to do the hard things. I need to push myself. I need to see the things now when I can, because I don't know when my time is up. When I don't know what's around the corner. And I'm here for the stories. I'm here for the people. Uh, I'm here for the experiences and the places, because that's what matters more. That's what I will remember more than how much money I made or what job I had. It all makes sense in the rearview mirror. It's another thing I tell myself at the end of the day. And it's like that's why I need to do the tough things. I need to push myself. I need to take the unsafe option, because I think security is a myth that we often feed ourselves to try and feel better about an innately uncertain world. Safety and stability. You're only stable for a time. And so what? And on the other side, like, what a boring life to live if you're just focused on stability and safety. Where you have to, yeah, it has to be something at risk, I think, to truly live. Um, whether that's your comfort, or your stability, or the known. I think something has to be at risk, and so I think that's something else that I've kind of been taught through my dad's passing. And then again, I think all these thoughts should be better, fleshed out. But this is a very raw kind of sharing of experience, of perspective. But I think pain has so much to teach us if we are willing to listen. All of our emotions do, but pain especially, of what matters to us, of what we value, of where our boundaries lie, of where our values are. And again, if we are really open to sitting with that pain and to leveraging that pain into growth, and if we sit with it and not try to run away from it, as many people often try to do, I think so many of our problems in general source themselves from pain, in our failed attempts to try and avoid it versus then sit with it. But of course, I love my dad. I wish he was here. I wish I could send him a postcard or a video, and I know how proud he would be of where I am right now. And I wish he could come and visit. And I wish, there's so many adventures that he'll never be a part of. And again, like, he's there, but he's not there, and like, that's okay. And again, pain is all the love that goes unsaid, and that not that hole will never be filled. It never will. People might say you can fill it up with time, and that time heals all wounds. But I think sometimes life just has to have a way of growing around that pain, and that maybe scaffolding itself over what pain is left behind. I think everyone's path is different, right? Everyone's experience is complex. But that's my experience, and already crying, my first kind of vlog here, so I guess that's a good sign. But I think that's given me a lot of power. Going through these tough experiences have shown me how capable I am of going through tough experiences. And I think it makes every next one not so much a fear to be avoided, but an obstacle to be surmounted. Whether that's a new job or a new experience or new people or new language or new culture or whatever the case may be, is that I have dealt with hard things and I'm better for them. And if we use that frame of reference, that frame of mind to deal with these experiences of pain, then again, it can be a much more empowering and powerful thing than we make it out to be. And so with that, I think that's a pretty good place to end off for this little vlog. If you have any other big thoughts to share, I might do another one on this topic or add them to my blog to follow this. But not feeling good to get this off my chest. And so I think this is the kind of relationship I want to have. It's of sincerity and vulnerability. And I guess I will catch you in the next one. Ciao, ciao.